Good afternoon, guys, and welcome to the podcast. I have a very special guest for you today, Llance Kezner, and he is a specialty food innovator. And if you're interested in the podcast, we're going to be talking about crafting a category disrupting product. We're going to talk about reaching half of all Walmart stores nationwide. We're going to talk about food innovation, creating a brand, and he's also appeared on How I Built This with Guy Raz, which is one of my favorite podcasts. Llance is the real deal, and I'm really happy to interview him. So, Llance, welcome.
Hi, Christopher. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, briefly introduce yourself and talk about how you got into specialty food innovation, how you grew and scaled it, and I'm excited about the conversation.
Yeah, Llance Kezner from Bellevue, Washington. Ended up in this industry accidentally. Started in our kitchen because of a job layoff back in 2009, and my wife Lori and I were very innovative, and we love to create things. And we found that food was like our passion, and so this is where we started, and now our products are in 3,000 stores across the country. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, that's a really, it's almost, I'd really love to talk to you more about scaling and growing your business. For the audience, if you're interested in specialty food innovator, we're going to talk about that. First thing is talk about when you were first starting, obviously it's when you talk about specialty food disruption, what does that mean?
In our case, and again, we didn't set out to do this, but in our case, we created a category that didn't exist before. So let me put it to you this way: when someone creates a variation of something, like let's say a barbecue sauce that has whiskey in it or something like that, the category of barbecue sauce still exists, and it's just like another flavor or something like that. We created a savory hot beverage category that didn't exist before. So instead of coffee, tea, cocoa, cider, we created a sipping broth category that basically gave consumers the option of drinking something hot that was satisfying, that didn't have sugar, caffeine, or anything like that. So if you went into the retail store, you would see traditional categories, but with ours, all of a sudden we're confusing people, right? We're saying our product it's like tea, but it's not tea, and it's like broth, but it's not like a cooking broth. So that's why we're disrupting. That's what we've been told. And like I said, we didn't set out to do that. It just happened that way.
Yeah. It's fascinating because I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs on this podcast, and a lot of them are like coaches or like social media marketers or thought leadership. And so this is really interesting how you stumbled upon this idea. Tony Robbins, he talks about being this category of one and kind of looking ahead and anticipating what the customer needs and wants before they even know it, and creating a category, which is sounds like what you're doing, or like what Steve Jobs did with the iPod and the iPhone. First thing is talking about is why did your business take off? What was so special about you sounds like you found a good product market fit.
The product was really created to appeal to one person, and that was my wife. She was a teacher, and in the afternoons between classes, she wanted something that would satisfy her as a snack, instead of going into the break room and eating all the leftover cakes and cookies that the teachers would bring and try and get rid of, make everyone else eat. So she used to bring a bouillon cube and put it in water and drink it, because she didn't want coffee or tea. She didn't want sugar. She didn't want caffeine. And so I said, that is really unhealthy. Can I try and make something that's a little healthier for you? So I put herbs and spices and dehydrated vegetables together, put them in a cup and put water. And she said, that's great and everything like that, but it's all over the place. I'm drinking it, I'm getting it in my mouth. She said, put it in a tea bag And so she and I together took Lipton tea bags, ripped them apart, took all this concoction, put it together in the tea bag, stapled them together. We made about 10 of them. She took them to school, put them in the break room. She came back from class and they were all gone. And this appealed to one person. Now it's appealing to 10 people. And we looked at each other and thought, oh, we have something here.
Hmm. Interesting. And so your product went viral during COVID. What was about COVID that kind of launched? It sounds like you had to start to get popular, gain traction. What about the times that made it like just go completely crazy?
Yeah, so our we started the business by getting the product to people as quickly as we possibly could. We didn't spend a lot. I mean, we spent most of our effort was on the flavor and making sure that the quality of the experience was the best it could possibly be. The packaging, we did the best we could, but we literally, I think within 30 days we started selling our product to people. We set up a tent at the Pike Place Market right across from the original Starbucks and sold it on the weekends during the summer. Who's buying broth during the summer? It was crazy. Anyway, we really built a direct to consumer business first and really focused on making sure the quality was incredible and scaling the business so that we could scale it to get it out of our kitchen, get it into a partner co-manufacturing capability, that kind of thing. Along the way, we got discovered by Weight Watchers, and our broth. Okay, so the broth comes in a tea bag, right? So it's just this vegetables, herbs, and spices. There's no animal proteins. It's all vegan. It ends up being 0 points on Weight Watchers plan. So the dietitians and Weight Watchers love this for their members. And so they put us on the front page of weightwatchers.com to sell along with other products that kind of fit these needs. Then COVID hit and nothing was the same. Everyone was gaining weight, everyone was losing weight, everyone was staying home. Everyone was doing all kinds of crazy things. We started selling product like you can't believe, and then became the #1 best-selling vegetable broth on Amazon because of that. And so that's what exploded us into the atmosphere.
Mm. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, for example, like my brand, it also COVID because everybody was at home and watching. So I was on YouTube and podcasting. The How did you market it? Did you use social media? Did you use word of mouth? Did you do advertising? Talk about how you started to in the initial phases, how you got the word out.
A lot of it was in person. So before COVID, it was really in person, fairs, festivals, that direct contact leading up from the Pike Place Market. The Pike Place Market gets like 11 million visitors a year. And we literally would see hundreds of thousands of people in a day just walk by our booth. And so we had to get a 5 to 8 second pitch to connect with people. And so we got really good at that. And a lot of people would come back, or they would take something and then they would order it from us online or whatever. So it was a lot of word of mouth at first. And then we used digital mediums to connect with people, definitely social media. We had the opportunity to be on the Home Shopping Network. So actually, right where you're seeing me right now, we built this little studio broth bar, and we were during COVID doing presentations live on Home Shopping Network, which was pretty wild. And then getting into some specialty stores. So specialty stores would be like gift shops or these types of stores where they really, cater to a very high-end customer. And so we were really focused on who were the early adopters and talking to them in the language that they wanted, and then listening to them because we needed to learn why they thought our product was special and why they would take their money and spend it, because we wanted to find the people who needed our product or craved our product versus someone who was casually interested in our product.
Yeah. When you think about, because a lot of when you think about these essentially it's a startup and it's an entrepreneur, they talk about what industry and then what problem and then how are you going to solve that problem and then you create a like a product or service or something to address that, and then you proof of concept and you scale it. And then what's interesting is your wife started just doing it for herself and then it exploded. So if someone was interested in creating a niche or market that hasn't been discovered yet, what are your thoughts and suggestions? Obviously there's a really good book around luck, but talk about how you reconcile this accidental finding.
I think that simplicity is probably the biggest mantra I would use. Don't overcomplicate what it is you're trying to accomplish, because the more complicated you make it, the more people won't understand it, the harder it is to do, the harder it is to convince people. With our idea, putting broth in a tea bag, everyone understood it. The biggest comment we get is, oh my gosh, why didn't I think of that? First off, I'm glad you didn't think of it because we did. But in their mind, it's like instantly in their mind. And then when they taste it, they go, this is incredible. Okay. So those two things, those are very, very simple things that they get. So whatever you're thinking about, if it's simple to understand or simple to explain within one or two sentences, that I think is probably the best thing I can suggest. And then the more you talk about it and finding ways to talk about it and finding ways to get feedback about it and make it, whatever it is, you got to make it and get it out. Just get it in front of people as fast as you possibly can. There are a lot of different ways to talk about it. Those two things, so the simplicity and getting it in front of people, those are the best things. Whatever you're thinking about will find its own path, whether it's to a mass or even to a niche, because that niche may absolutely need what you're providing, and there might be enough revenue in that niche to make it sustainable for you. But yeah, so those are the things I would really suggest.
Interesting. Sounds like a lot of aha moments. It's like, why I didn't think about that, and that's one really, and then the element of surprise, and it's, oh, this is delicious. And then what were some of the obstacles, like, because you're in this new uncharted, and then how do you know how to go? You ended up you were selling on Amazon, you end up in Walmart and Home Shopping, Guy Raz. Yeah. Were there steps, or you just like things, were you strategic or calculated? Talk about just how you chart a path forward when you really don't know what to do.
Yeah, I think that I've come to the realization, and my wife Lori also, that opportunities present themselves to you and you take them and you put out into the world what it is you want to do, and the opportunities come, and then you just move forward, and those provide other opportunities. And I make no qualms about the fact that a lot of the things that we've done have been just not really accidental, but as a result of those opportunities rather than planned.
Uh-huh.
And I think that the bottom line of all of this is that we had an idea of what we wanted to do, and we just focused on just a couple of ideas, the quality of the product and a couple of the fundamentals, such as we wanted to make something that was plant-based and vegan, and we wanted to focus on the important aspects of being plant-based. And that resonated with people. And I don't know if I answered your question. That really just propelled us. The opportunity with Walmart came from one of those present things that were presented to us. Walmart had something that's called an open call. And the open call is, they do it every year for American-made products. And so I think they asked us to write 2 paragraphs about what we were doing. And we did that. And then we got an invitation. There were 7,000 other products that were presented.
Wow.
They asked 800 companies to come and meet with them, 400 in person, 400 virtually. We were asked in person to come to Bentonville and meet with them. And then we went, and they had something called a golden ticket, which meant they give you a deal on the spot. So we were one of 70 companies that got a deal on the spot. And then we had to wait a year before we could tell anybody, because we went from that to making more product in 1 week than we had made in a year,
Mm.
and then getting it on the shelf in this last October. So that's the path based on an opportunity that was presented to us.
Interesting. Sounds like a lot of things coincided to really help you. And then in the initial phases, when you're at like the local farmers markets and like local just niche, talk about the sales, because a lot of startup founders, for example, like when I was building this podcast, all I did was I wanted to make it the most efficient as possible, lowest cost. I just wanted to create a minimal viable product and get it out there, see if I could monetize it. And then once I could do that, then I could start investing in better things. And then, but a lot of entrepreneurs, they're like, day one, I need to make a profit. What were your goals? Or were you like just bootstrap, make a profit, fit the client's needs? How did you juggle all those?
First of all, one of the things that people ask me is, what's a great piece of advice for someone who wants to start something? And I say, don't quit your day job. Don't do not quit your day job. You need income. All right. There were times where Lori and I were working 2 and 3 jobs, maybe consulting or whatever. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, we were very focused on a minimum viable product. So getting the product out as quickly as possible, but it had to be profitable
Yeah.
also. So we cut out a lot of things that may have made it too expensive, marketing budgets, things that just were not in our budget to be able to sustain. So those were the guiding principles, really. We had to make our lives as difficult as possible, working as many jobs as possible, so that when things really took off, we had a real important decision. Do we stay with one thing or go with the other? So those were the things that guided us.
Interesting. Talk about differentiating your food product in a competitive market. How did you do that?
Since we were okay, so we've been drinking broth for thousands of years, right? You go to the grocery store, there's a huge soup and broth section. Campbell Soup owns like 90% of the category. If you go in there, it's red and white all over the place. Like I said, we didn't set out to be the next big broth thing. So we were approaching it from a different perspective. And retailers, when they look at what we're doing, and we still have this issue, it's a done deal. We are a marginal product that they can add to the category that they didn't have before. So it's good and bad. The good thing is that all the sales that they get from our product, because they just added it to the category, are on top of what they would normally get. So they're not going to cannibalize anything else, right? The bad thing is that it's new, and there's a lot of consumer education that needs to go into this. So our task basically is to educate and drive consumers to the places where they can get it on an ongoing basis. It just never stops. We do that through wonderful interviews like with you, Chris, and on social media, by articles on LinkedIn. I just wrote an article about why bone broth why is bone broth so horribly expensive versus vegan broth like what we're doing. And you just have to look at the egg shortage that's going on right now to see what drives these crazy prices. So anyway, that's what we do.
Mm, interesting. And along those lines, because you were selling the product on Amazon, and it's interesting because typically now they have Uber Eats and you can get groceries delivered to you and things like that. But back then, what made you is there a disconnect between e-commerce strategy and selling food products? Because food products are sometimes a lot of them are perishable.
Yeah, so ours luckily is dry, and it's just like tea. It's got a long shelf life. I think a few of the things that helped us were the word of mouth from people that we had seen in person. buying our product, and then them coming back to get it, and then telling their friends or family. And then they had, there was a trust factor. There's definitely a trust factor there. So that really kicked things off. I don't think we would have been able to connect with people through e-commerce if we didn't do that, because that sampling, that taste, you can't convey that through digital medium. You can make people look at it, but anyway, so that really was the kind of the catalyst. Getting into Amazon was tricky. Getting into Weight Watchers was even trickier. The bigger the profile, or like Home Shopping Network, we had to go through all kinds of hoops to make sure that our product conformed to certain standards. We had the right kind of certifications and all those kinds of things. We didn't start off that way, but we slowly built to that. Some people think, oh, I'm going to start my business tomorrow, and then the next day I'm going to be in every Whole Foods. It doesn't work like that. You really have to build. You have to build up to that, and there are baby steps. But if you're aggressive, you can get there.
Yeah. And what are your top or recommendations for pitching food products to retailers, distributors, and ultimately getting into Walmart, Whole Foods? Your thoughts?
So you have to have, when you put your product on the shelf, you have to have the mentality of, it is a place for people to go get your product. Okay. Versus, are they going to sell my product? Okay. Selling something and having it as a place to get are completely different ideas. So when you get into a major retailer, they are not going to sell your product for you. You have to sell your product. It is just a place where they go get it. So with that mentality, you have to present your product to the buyer in a way where they're confident that people are going to they're going to seek it out in their establishment. Okay? That's critical. If they don't have that confidence, they're not going to talk to you. They're not going to give you any time to present your product. There has to be a compelling reason why people are going to come and get it from them. So that's critical. If you don't have that, or if you're not at that point, selling direct to consumers is a wonderfully beautiful thing. Using marketplaces like Amazon and eBay, and there are new marketplaces popping up all over the place. Leverage those things to get that following. So when you do see a buyer, and you can say, oh, by the way, we were being sold to 4 million Weight Watchers subscribers, and by the way, they're looking for it now. If you've got to have a story like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And talking about scaling, how does one talk about scaling from home kitchen to national distribution? Obviously, do you ever have a point where like just so much orders were not getting filled because it was so popular? I know, because like there's stories of startups, they just become overnight and all of a sudden they can't handle the demand and there's like a 10-month waiting. How did you scale?
We went through various periods like that. They weren't too extreme. I think we had very gradual growth, which we were very lucky. I think that having that dramatic of a spike, there were opportunities where we could have had dramatic growth very early on, but we had things like we partner with co-manufacturers, and one of them started making our product and burning it, and the quality was, we didn't know what was going on, and the quality was terrible, and we couldn't figure out what's going on. And at that time, we had a very large opportunity, and they turned us away because the quality kept sucking. And I think we were lucky, because if they had given us the opportunity and we made it with that terrible quality, they would have said, we're returning it all. You got to pay for it. So we were pretty lucky with those types of things. But there are various challenges. Every step up, there are challenges. We still today, even though we're supplying Sam's Club and Walmart with our product, we have to make sure that the quality of the product is the best it can be. The packaging, There, during COVID and after COVID, we had ran into packaging shortages. There are so many elements. If one ingredient is missing from our product, the taste is different. If you and the one thing that my wife and I, we don't think about every single detail all the time because it can drive you crazy. We just have to solve problems. And so a lot of people say, what's it like being an entrepreneur? And I say, I'm not an entrepreneur, I'm a problem solver. I got my product in front of people to buy because I was solving a problem for them. Like they wanted to snack and not have guilt. And then now supplying it to Walmart. What's the problem? Making sure we have enough inventory, making sure we tell enough people to go in and buy it. Those are big fundamental problems. But yeah.
Yeah. Were there any points during the journey where you're just like, screw this, it's not going to work, shut the doors, or just like a lot of companies during COVID, it's just like, we just got to close our doors. Talk about some of those moments.
Are you talking about yesterday? It almost happened. That thought crosses my mind a lot. I think that be careful what you wish for in certain circumstances, even though we've built up to this point. But yeah, the last 2 weeks have been pretty rough for various reasons. But if you look back at what we've accomplished, it's pretty amazing. Anyone would love to be in the situation we're in right now. You have to just take the ups and downs in a kind of and even them out so far. This morning, we got one piece of bad news, followed by another piece of good news. And it always gets equaled out by our customer feedback. The customer feedback is what makes our day. And we get it on a daily basis. We're very lucky about that. That just really makes things, don't slam the door. We just go to shut it. And then we get a piece of customer feedback and we go, let's open it again.
Yeah. We're almost to the end of the podcast. And then talk about what are the latest trends in the specialty food industry, and talk about like in this era, like with tariffs and with there's so many new changes in policy, how that affects you or how you're thinking about it or how you're addressing those challenges.
As far as all of the tariffs and cost increases that they are coming and they are happening. We're not going to get away from it. That's just fundamental to everything across our economy. So we're going to see that impact. We can't get away from that. What we can do is provide an alternative to other products that, like our product on a per serving basis is around 50 cents, something like that. Bone broth could be up to $7 per serving. Wow. If you look at those economics, and that bone broth cost is going to continue to go up, you can provide a more economical, affordable experience in a premium product for consumers. So I think that's going to drive a lot of the focus on vegan products like ours. As far as what's next for us, imagine more places other than retail where you can experience our product. So as an example, company break rooms, going into a company break room and having the option of having broth at 3:00 in the afternoon instead of a bag of Cheetos. You would appreciate it. Your employer would appreciate it. You're probably going to be less cranky and more satisfied. That's one example. Another example is, what if you have to go into the hospital and in recovery, dietitians are now finding that the quality of the food and the experience with the food really has an impact on recovery. Mm-hmm. So imagine instead of getting the murky saltwater broth that they serve, that you get a cup of Thai lemongrass broth that you just made right in front of you. Imagine how that would taste. Or the last thing I'll say is, what if you're on an airplane and the beverage cart comes down the aisle and they say, would you like coffee, tea, or broth? What do you think you're going to ask for next time?
I'm being tempted to ask for the broth because it just sample it, try it out, see what it's like.
Absolutely. And I think airline passengers need less caffeine and sugar to calm them down on the flights these days.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a Wonderful conversation and parting words advice for people interested in developing a unique food or beverage concept or creating a niche and category. And how can people find you and check out your products?
Yeah, I really, like I said, don't quit your day job. Get your product in front of people as quickly as you possibly can. You will get and listen to what they tell you about your product. Write it all down. I know it's your baby, but you gotta listen to what they say and take that to heart. A lot of people have very good intentions, so just listen to what they're saying. They're not trying to dissuade you. You can reach us at sippingbroth.com. Again, our product is Millie Sipping Broth. We're in half of the Walmarts in the broth and soup section at eye level. I'm on LinkedIn as well, Llance Kezner, it's with two L's. And yeah, I would love to connect with anybody who has questions or just wants to chat about what's going on in this industry.
Yeah, I really love that. And really, it's been great to get such a fantastic guest such as yourself on the show and keep up the great work.
Thank you, Christopher. It's really been a pleasure.